you're using the increased value and taxes from the district focused on being spent within the district. So with that, I'm going to run through a couple of things with the project plan, and then, of course, let public provide comment. So there are some key issues that have to be in this project plan. They are spelled out by statute, but this project plan says we have to list proposed projects and possible costs associated with those projects that would occur in the district. We do have to conduct a blight study, which was conducted last year. We do have to have a pro forma or economic feasibility study, method of potential financing and project costs. The city is expecting this to be what we call a pay-go or pay-as-you-go TID. They are not expecting to do any borrowing for projects in this district unless there is a development project that would enter into a separate agreement with the city to undertake those projects. That has been very common for the city. But I just want to make it clear, this project plan is not calling for borrowing or any general obligation debt associated with this. It is really focused on pay-as-you-go, which has been used extensively along Tyranina Road and now down off of Sandy Beach in 89. So again, there's a variety of maps that we have to provide in here. So all of those things are in this project plan, which makes it pretty long. We do have to highlight, sorry, I'm flipping ahead. Do you have the capacity to create this TID? Statute limits a municipality to 12% of its total equalized value being tied up in tax increment financing. Based on that number, the equalized value of the city is about $640 million, give or take. The 12% is about 76 million in equalized value or increment tied up. So we have a table in here that shows the value of all the increment that is tied up in tax increment finding. That's almost $43 million, which puts you at 7% of the 12%. This TID the value on the date of creation would be $20 million. So that would leave you about $11.5 million of capacity left, or 1.8%. It is important to note that TID 2 will be coming off the books in a couple of years. TID 2, go back up here, has a value of $33 million or $21 million in increment. It's almost a quarter of all your increment. So when that comes off the books, I think in 2023, then you will have excess capacity again. So I just want to make sure everybody's clear on the capacity issue. So you do have the ability to create it. I'm going to skip ahead to some of the development assumptions that have been made in association with this, so please bear with me as I skip to those pages. We try to put in some fairly representational graphics of what expected development or desired development is within all of our TIDs. That is good and bad. The good of it is it gives you a very clear picture of the kind of development that's expected. The bad is sometimes it's a little too detailed and everybody thinks that's exactly what is going to happen. And I want to make it clear, because something is shown on these graphics does not necessarily mean this is exactly what will get built. And some of the things that will have to be evaluated and will come before the Plan Commission and the Council at a future date are those specific development plans. So here we are showing on the Century site, residential on upper floors, lower floor corner office or retail, and then on the back side, the south side of that block, if you're there now, if you've been out there, there's a single family home there that's been bought and vacated, and it's really kind of the back of the Century building where all the dumpsters and the cardboard and stuff was stored. We are showing a series of townhomes there. Again, the larger apartment condo building with the retail in it or office in it, we are illustrating as 4-story. We have heard from developers that is desired. We've had meetings with developers in the past about the site, and then we kind of experienced what we've all been experiencing for the last 6, 7 months. So those aren't really on the table right now. But the desire is to show that with these graphics, kind of that 4-story could work adjacent to the park. The townhouses we're showing at 2 or 2.5 story. Um, Again, this is not to say this is exactly what will get built. I want to make that clear. That still would be reviewed and approved by the Plan Commission and the City Council um, before a shovel was put into the ground. But we did want to show how the site could work, that there is parking on the site, that there could be underground parking or partially exposed parking on the backside for the apartment complex, and then the townhouses would have their own garages. So these are just a variety of graphics showing um, how those blocks would transition to and from the park, which is obviously a large, wide open space. Um, and then there's some single family homes on the south side of Water Street, adjacent to the east of City Hall. Again, these are uh, this is something that has certainly been desired in the downtown, is residential units in combination with some office or retail. It's very difficult to predict the retail market right now, but having some space where retail could work is illustrated here. Um, we need to have some level of development assumption for the district to project possible new increment here. So I'm gonna, as you can see, there are some taller elements. This is at the northeast corner of the block where Century is. To the east of this is the Greenwoods Bank. The north side is just the park. So taller elements where it has wide open space. The goal is that you would have great views of not just the downtown, but quite possibly the lake from here, which makes it very, very attractive to a developer. Developer needs to get certain density out of this. A project like this, and again, I ask people to just kind of look at the pictures on their own time. I don't want people to get bogged down on any architectural vernacular that's being shown in the renderings. We want to show that this type of housing or development can fit within the context of downtown. But again, the details would be sorted out with the developer, with their architect, bringing something to the city to see if it does really pass um, the test that the municipality has for its downtown. Um, this is an incredibly exciting time, even though that the Century site is available for development. It is very rare that you have sites like this in a historic downtown of this size, 2 acres, which doesn't sound like much to some, but in a historic downtown, that's a very large area to be available for development or for redevelopment to bring new value into a downtown setting. So in the pro forma here, again, they are development assumptions. Um, we were showing about 35 units of multifamily or condo or apartment, depending upon what a developer would bring in. 6 townhouses, and then generally about 7,500-ish square feet of retail or office in those spaces. We use very conservative values for those units to determine how much they would be taxed in time. We were using $150,000 per unit for the multifamily or condo units, and $225,000 for the townhouse units. The and then $150 a square foot for the retailer office space. Again, these are very, very conservative numbers. I don't want anybody walking away saying, "Oh my God, you're bringing in something that has very low value." No, the reason we do that is because we want to make sure that we don't overshoot a mark when we're putting together a financial pro forma on what potential tax increment could be generated from this. Um, we fully expect that if a development happens on that site, that would have much more value than we're showing here. We're only showing $8 million in total new value down there. We fully expect if that site were to develop, that it would bring in over $10 million in new value. which is a massive amount in a downtown tax increment district. Um, Based on these performas, which it would have construction occurring as early as 2023, so 2 years out. The site is ready to be constructed. I know there's a building on it, but it doesn't take much to knock a building down, so it is really ready. And we were not projecting any other improvements in the rest of the district. And we didn't even account for any increase in value in the rest of the district in putting together the pro forma. But we do expect that if a key project like this happens in the downtown, that TID monies would be available to assist the redevelopment of other projects in the downtown, whether it's facade improvement, new code improvements for interior remodelings, um, certainly other projects, streetscaping that might be necessary off of Main Street that hasn't been done, a variety of things, lighting. There are some utility projects that are available in the downtown. Again, um, a key site like the Century site, being able to redevelop is massive for being able to leverage that to do other important projects in the downtown. Um, and I'm looking at Mr. Foster on this, but as Mr. Foster knows, being on the council, nothing happens in a TID unless the council approves it. So I want to make sure that anybody listening or here understands that there is a process that the city has had in place for years that has been followed as it relates to tax increment district. There is full transparency. There are no surprises with tax increment districts. Um, so the last kind of big chart in here that I am going to show you, and I'm asking you to focus on the green column. It says if this pro forma was hit, like you met those numbers, that's what it would generate each year in new taxes. Okay. And that's the increment of the tax increment district that could be available for undertaking projects in the district. So at the end of the day, again, you're talking over 27 years, about $4.5 million would be available based on our very, very conservative projections. Again, the reason we're very conservative on the projections, and it's important to note that the city is not borrowing any money based on this, is because if we crystal ball and we're wrong a little bit, um, it doesn't put the city on the hook for anything. You haven't made any debt borrowing obligations based on this. And anytime a development comes in, there is a developer agreement. I'm looking at the city attorney on this that spells out exactly what they have to build, exactly what value they have to create to be eligible for any possible assistance in the district. And again, to help um, highlight the amount of increment that could potentially happen over time that would be available for other projects. And then on a year-by-year basis, there's auditing of the district that occurs, just like the city finances get audited to determine the health of the district, and then the city can undertake projects based upon the amount of increment that may be available. So again, there's a lot of crystal balling associated with the project plan and the pro forma, but the key to understand is you are also not making any debt obligation requirements with this either. It is put in place to earmark the types of projects that could occur and to attract a developer to redevelop the site. That's the most notable piece. Um, the first question a developer asks when they start looking at these sites is there a district? Is there a tax increment district available? If the question is no, then the follow-up is, can one be made? It is one of the few tools that municipalities have to use for economic development on challenging sites. The building has to come down. Sometimes there's environmental remediation. Again, I will point people to the Walgreens site that used to be a gas station. It had considerable environmental remediation that was necessary, a couple $100,000. It's a Walgreens now. It's been a Walgreens for a decade plus. But before that, if you recall what it looked like, it wasn't the most attractive entry into the community, right? Because it was just an older sites that had environmental problems. The city was able to use tax increment financing to remediate the site and attract a developer to develop the Walgreens. So that's the same type of thing that happens here. It takes time. These things do not happen overnight. And again, there's a process that gets followed. Um, at the end of the day, tax increment financing has to answer the but-for test. But for the use of tax increment financing, development wouldn't occur. Well, that site has been vacant for over a year, and the market is such that the city would like to help shape it, right? Developers aren't banging down the door because there are costs associated with just getting the site cleared that they don't want to undertake. Um, so, but for the use of TID, it is my opinion as your planner that development or redevelopment is not going to occur. So there is, as I will remind you, should you decide to approve this tonight, there is a resolution, spells out a lot of items that have to be in the resolution per the state statute. But if there are questions on this, I will certainly try to answer them.
Microphones are off.
Before. Can you hear me? All right. Um, okay, we will get to discussion as the next item, but because we're in public hearing, now we heard the presentation from Mr. Wilf, our city planner. We are in public hearing. Would anyone like to comment on the proposed Taxicum and financing district? If so, then please approach the podium, sign in, and state your name and address for the city clerk. Is there anyone who wishes to comment on the financing district? No. Go ahead. Yeah.
Terry Railing, 106 Water Street. I gotta tell you, these things are terrible. But anyway, I happen to be in a floodplain. Building directly west of me.
Right.
Is it working? Okay. The building directly west of me, haven't got a tunnel going through it, a creek even runs through it. Building 1 foot to the east of me, actually its lowest level is 1 to 2 feet lower than my lowest level, but I'm in a floodplain. As such, I cannot update or maintain the building, is limited occupancy, and is to be removed with no time frame. How does this affect me?
Mhm.
Well, at the end of the day, being included in the district means that there could potentially be dollars available to help with certain things, but it's not going to sidestep any environmental requirements that the DNR may have placed on a property. And so I can't say specifically what this is going to do to you. It's not going to alleviate the floodplain issues that you have out there. Um, I can say that if the district is in place, it may be an opportunity to help with certain improvements, but they would still have to comply with any of the DNR requirements or building code requirements.
Okay, so it's more or less a good luck.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a good luck. It's just there are constraints on all of the properties in the downtown, and the district is not a silver bullet. It will help certain areas develop, and there may be constraints on other properties that the tax increment district can't uh, uh, can't necessarily address. And it's a little too difficult based on your knowledge of your property and my knowledge not of your property to tell you something very specific. So again, I would encourage you to come in and talk with the city staff about some of the specifics related to your property.
Trey's property is right here on Water Street, and it's in the ordinary high water mark of Rock Creek. We have notice from the DNR that he can't do any substantial improvements to the structure. So our building inspector is virtually locked up on allowing any significant improvements in that property. Probably the best he could hope for is that as part of the TID district, it would get purchased by the city and removed. There might be some minimal types of improvements that could be made in there that might qualify for TID, but they're going to be pretty small based on the knowledge I know of how that building can be improved and how it's constructed. So this is kind of a pretty limited opportunity for you, very small. You'd be better off to look at what we had proposed the last time.
What was that proposal?
That we purchased the property.
So nothing's been done.
This wouldn't do that.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Mr. Reeling, Mr. Wilkie. And then please state your name, sign in, please, and state your name and address again for the record.
Thanks. My name's Brad Rozecki. I live at 116 Pinnacle Street. I came here to hear about another property, but I'm glad I'm here for this as well. Couple questions that I have, trying to understand how the TIF works. How would school district taxes be assessed on the growth of the property?
So again, you will still, as a property owner, pay your taxes, you always will. Behind the scenes, that's where the divvying up of the dollars occurs. Okay? So to you, your tax bill will still say XYZ is going to all these taxing jurisdictions. Here, when the taxing jurisdiction decides to create this district, it doesn't keep them all. They are all part of what's called the joint community. They agree that on the date that the district is created, the value is grown. Okay? So on January 1, 2021, the value is grown. And your tax dollars continue to go to those proportionate shares that are a part of that day, based on the value of your property on that day. Any value increase in your property, just general attrition, maybe goes up.
Dustin, can you turn on your microphone, please?
Certainly.
That any attrition, so increase in value over time, the amount over that frozen value of your property and all of those properties in the district would then just go to the district. So all of the taxing jurisdiction monies, I'm going to use round numbers. If the mill rate is $20 per thousand, and all those taxing jurisdictions get a piece on that frozen value, they still get that piece. Above that value, the TID gets all $20 per thousand, just above that value.
So my question is then so like this proposal that certainly is the vision of what is being proposed to be done, not exactly what would be done, but the vision. So say it's a $4 million property and it's going to move, I don't know, 150 new residents to the city, whatever would live there. None of that new tax base would go to the school district.
The tax base would not, but they still get their share of state aids, et cetera. That doesn't go away, which is the bulk of their dollars.
But the rest of us are going to have to pick up the taxes for the kids who live in that building, right? You guys are shaking your head. Explain to me why not.
Because they agreed to it. They actually agreed to it. The school agrees to stay at that level.
Right.
For the life of the kid. So they agreed to that money, and that's all they have. And the rest of it is to be used for upgrades inside that district.
But the difficulty is going to be the schools are full now, right? And it's just not this kid. It's the one we want to do down in Sandy Beach too. We want to put multiplexes in. We want to have the big apartment building. We want to lure these people from Madison who are young and want to live by the bike trail and not live in and not work in Lake Mills, and they're going to commute. And they're going to have kids, and that's who we're trying to attract are these young people. Our schools are already full. We're going to have to build a new school, and we can't get the incremental growth out of this residential unit. So in general, residential units aren't a good use of TID. TID's great for Walgreens, right? Walgreens isn't increasing the burden to anyone else. It's giving extra money to the school. So this
I would like to
proposal it's a novel proposal. It's interesting. It's creative, but it doesn't fix the problem. The problem is we need a business to move into town. And instead, we're trying to draw in, you know, young people who want to commute to Madison from here out of their condo. And that doesn't really help our community. When you look at the vision that was last addressed in 2009, that's in the city plan, it talks about 4 house per acre, single family housing. I don't think the entire community is getting a say in what the vision of this is. I don't think everyone really gets what this ultimately can mean for all of us on what we're going to see on the back end of this. It's going to be extremely costly. It's going to change the very character of the city. It's going to have a huge impact on our school district, and it's going to be difficult for us. So we can all disagree. I can pull up the websites that show. The state website shows it says what's the con of it? It's the difficulty between the other entities that want to get paid taxes, the school district. And if it doesn't bring a burden to it, awesome, right? Walgreens isn't causing any more kids to go to our school. These proposals are, and we're not going to get the tax dollars for it. So I think we vote no on it if it's worthwhile for a developer to come in and build. This is like trust me, I've been looking for real estate in this town for the last year and a half. This is the hottest real estate market in Jefferson County. It's the hottest real estate market in a 100-mile radius. It's super hot. If people want to come in and build, let them do it. We don't have to do it to get it. So thanks for listening to my comments. I appreciate it. It was a great presentation tonight. Thank you.
I think that there are several inaccurate statements made in that statement. First of all, our comprehensive plan gave a broad range of family living types. TIF was
It's Mr. Wilkie. Mr. Wilkie is speaking now. City Manager Wilkie is speaking.
If that's okay.
Yes, yes. They asked who was speaking.
Most of the audience can't hear.
The comprehensive plan out of 2009 gave a broad range of family units, residential and other types. So saying that it was a 12-acre or 4 units per acre comprehensive plan is not an accurate statement. It gave quite a broad range of opportunities for people to use. Another issue that we have dealt with historically is that all or a significant amount of the commercial units that want to come to Lake Mills are either looking for really significant TID development or 10,000 roofs. And even then, they're looking for a significant TID contribution. So as you move towards the 10,000 roofs, his statements may be more accurate. At this point, we're not there. We did a study when we did TID number 4, and the school district actually made out better on the TID district than they did without the TID district because of the change in state aids. So to say that all of them are losing out is not accurate. Now, otherwise, every other unit of government at the Joint Review Board has voted in favor of these projects. So to say that everybody loses on this isn't necessarily accurate. Those governments understand what the benefits are running across the board for total economic impact in the communities that we serve, and they believe that this is in the best interest of that. Another statement is that while you're looking at areas that are green fields, the redevelopment areas are extremely hard to redevelop, and particularly if they're small. And I'm sure that there are a couple people in the audience that could speak to the effect of trying to get residential units on a site like that and hit the dollar value and what it takes. And so 12 units per acre on a site like a acre and a half or the one downtown is not a realistic understanding of what development takes. We've had the CPN site in TID 3 for 20 years now, pretty close to 20 years. and that was a residential development, and it stayed industrial without any TID insistence. So the question of how does it work is a little bit more complicated than saying that the residential isn't going to pay anything to the school, even though we're having all these impacts. And another issue that I really want to make clear is that town development is not city development. And so if you're looking at the comparison and trying to make any economic assumptions based on that, it's a bad idea. When you look at what they're paying in the town and where they're getting their services from and what kind of uses they get out of it, cities pay a real substantial portion of the project, the costs. And so trying to balance out who's winning and who's losing in any property tax question is really a difficult problem that we try not to get into at TIDS. And another issue is that the state legislature has defined housing as such a major problem that they've increased the number of houses you can have in a TID, not reduced. So when you look at a problem and the state has identified housing as a significant problem, they've really taken it on and said, hey, this is what needs to be done. And so they've given us much more of a broad opportunity rather than reducing it when it comes to housing.
Yeah, on top of that, the Department of Revenue Secretary, just working with state and local finance and the legislature, just passed another bill that allows the TID financing to actually be used more for residential and to reimburse the communities now more than they ever have. And that was just passed last week.
One thing you should think about when these TIDs roll off, like number 2 you were talking about, that increment then goes back on the tax rolls and the schools benefit greatly from that.
27 years ago, right?
Yeah, but we've got a series of them that are coming as we go. And they're all going to come off eventually.
Everyone, we're not in discussion, we're in public hearing, and so I want to focus on the members of the public who are here, and also if anyone is listening, there is a way to go into the chat feature to weigh in on to get your comments to us. So, right. Mr. Drescher just clarified that you would chat with us and then you would get your comments to us that way. We wouldn't hear you live. That we would be able to, if you chat with us, we would be able to then provide the live comments, yes. All right, but anyway, I would like to continue with the public hearing. We have members of the public here. And is there anyone else who wishes to comment on the proposed tax increment financing district? If so, and you're a member of this audience, then please approach the podium, sign in, and state your name and address for the clerk.
I have one question. Are you planning on passing this on to the planning commission?
Well, you would have to go, could you please approach the podium and sign in, please? And then state your name and address for the clerk, please.
Do I need these headphones on? Okay. My name's Patty Larrabee Castro, and I own a business on 305 Water. And what I'm wondering, are you planning on voting on this tonight and passing it on to the plan commission?
Okay.
We are the plan commission.
Yeah.
We'd be passing it on to the council.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, we are the plan commission,
correct.
so we would be
Oh, you
passing it on to
are?
the council. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, where does it go from here?
It would go to council,
Right.
to
Well,
city council.
I don't think a lot of people knew this was going on this fast. And I think you need to take a step back and let people understand what's happening. That's my idea. I don't think we need a 3 or 4-story building in the downtown and all brick. And I think you need to involve people. I think you ought to talk to business people. Have you done that?
I can appreciate your thoughts, ma'am, but you gotta realize this is the very start of it, and there is nothing planned to be built yet. We just had to have pictures in there to represent things that could possibly go in there. So there's nobody telling you there's gonna be a 3, 4-story brick building down there. So all we're doing right now is trying to set up the district so we have the ability to move forward with projects in the future. That's all we're trying to do.
Well, we would really like to be involved in this plan.
And you definitely are. That's exactly what you're doing. So thank you.
I think it's really important. I've been in business here for about 50 years. And I'd like to see something more connected with the town, with business. That's my idea of it. And we'd like to know more, us business people.
You certainly can. But
Thank you.
you're only going to get what we have, and that's what you got right now, because that's all we have.
Okay,
So we have nothing else to give you.
thank you.
All right. All right, thank you, Mrs. Larrabee. The public hearing is still open. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment on the proposed tax increment financing district? Would anyone else like to comment on this proposed tax increment financing district? Members of the public, is there anyone else who would like to comment on this proposed tax increment financing district? All right, hearing none, we're closing the public hearing and we go to item number 6, discussion, recommendation on proposed project plan and boundary for tax increment district number 8. All right, staff and plan commissioners, does anyone have any comments or questions about this proposed district?
This is Mr. Wilkie. I would like to make sure that they know that we sent out letters to everybody in the district, so that I believe there were probably 60 or 70 letters sent out. I also sent out additional notice to several people who had expressed interest the last time TID District number 8 was coming around. So there was plenty of notice. I've also spoke at the Main Street meeting and the chamber meeting on this issue at least once, sometimes twice.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wilkie. Yes, I recall that this whole public information started in the early spring, and then this very hearing that we're having tonight was actually to have occurred much sooner, but did not because of COVID-19. So yes, I recall that those earlier notices went out, and then when this hearing was set, the notices went out again to the property owners that are encompassed by the proposed boundaries of this district. And the draft plan has been online and also is available to see here at City Hall as a paper copy. Are there any questions, comments from plan commissioners? Any discussion about this proposed district?
I guess one question. The residential units here at the Century site, which seems to be a focus here, whether they're rental or owner occupied, would it really depend on the developer then, right?
It would depend on the developer, but it is also something that would come up in the normal review process with the plan commission and the council. It's too hard to predict what the market is. The understanding in this area is if you have a 3-story, 4-story building of let's say apartments, those rents and what we're seeing for price of rents here would be in excess of $1,400 a month, if not $1,800 a month. That rent amount rivals most people's mortgage and taxes. So, but it is not something that we can predict at this juncture. I do want to reiterate that any development proposal that would come forward on the Century site would be subject to the scrutiny of the Plan Commission and the Council. And if it doesn't meet the thresholds that you have expected for it, it won't get approved.
As one who believes in the American dream, home ownership, it'd be nice to see more owner occupied.
Yeah, unfortunately, all of the data across the country is subsequent generations don't want to own homes at this point. People in their 30s and below, or 35 and below, at this juncture don't want to own homes. They want to rent.
That's the current millennials. They'll grow up too.
And it may change.
All right. And then keep in mind that the length of the district is 20 or more years. And the market and demand and supply are all going to shift over time. And then you would see different proposals come forward should this district be approved. As time marches on, you'll see different proposals come forward, and they'll reflect the demand that exists at the time they come forward. Are there any other comments?
You mentioned the increment used for demolition. There would be other projects that would qualify for that increment dollar too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Someone certainly could come in with an all commercial project. Someone could come in with an all residential. Again, it will be evaluated by you as the Plan Commission and the Council prior to any commitment of potential tax increment financing assistance or before someone could actually construct.
That would cover like infrastructure needs also.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. All right.
I want to answer a question. There are a lot of properties in the downtown area that could be assisted by this TID that don't necessarily generate a lot of increment. It depends on how much increment is generated by other sites. And the primary site is going to be the Century property because that's the largest property that has any real substantial redevelopment opportunity. Most of the existing buildings are going to just be windows, doors, roofs, electric, that type of stuff. So if there's a large amount of increment generated on the Century site, that money can be passed on to other buildings in the area. So if Denny's Hair had some improvements that he wanted to make, he could file for some of those increment dollars and be awarded some, even though he probably wouldn't generate any significant amount of dollars. On the other hand, if nothing happens on the Century site, or if every penny that is generated by the Century site has to be pumped into the Century site, then the downtown gains less. They gain a better building on the Century site, but they don't get what's available. They wouldn't be able to utilize some of that extra increment. And so the more everything, and I think we've already heard tonight, if you allow developers to make their dollars on a site, they will request less TID dollars or need less TID dollars. So we've looked at a couple projects where we've granted 50% of the total increment available, and then we use some of that increment to make other improvements elsewhere. And so if we look at the absolute minimum building that's allowed on the Century site, we're probably not going to get a lot of increment out of that. If we allow a larger site to develop, we may get more increment to spread around the rest of the downtown. And so those are some of the weighing and balancing things that you have to look at. Everything is based on dollars and cents, and you know, when you're looking at a project that's coming in for a 1,900 square foot property and it's $377,000 in a redevelopment area versus what could be done in a green space area, it changes the dollars and the cents. So if we want to see redevelopment, we have to be willing to look at it from the standpoint of, okay, what are we going to invest in it?
Yeah, that also brings up the point that right now, while we have a picture inside of the documents to help create the TID, doesn't mean that we're going to build that. So it's just helping us get through those checks and balances that we need to get approved to create that TID. So then we have the free reign to work with any developer out there. And then at that point in time, when they buy it, when they talk about buying it, we can discuss exactly what we would like to see on that spot based on what the community looks like at that time or the community's interest at that time. So even if we have it in the document, there's nothing saying there's going to be a 4-story building and condos behind it down there, because there is no builder right now. Nobody's looking at it to build it. But in order to get somebody interested, you need to be able to show them that we're putting some value on that and that we're willing to work with people to develop it. Now, those extra dollars that come out in increment, so let's look at TID 2 out of 20 years. What do we have, like 20 million maybe in increment?
Yeah, 21 million increment, 33 million in total.
Yeah. So we're only at 10.2% of our equalized value if we create this TID, which is very low in increment tax dollars that aren't going to anything but creation of a better community for us. So without those TID and TIF dollars, there's a lot of things that would not happen in this community. Topals wouldn't be fixing their place up. We've given TID dollars out to the industrial zone, TID dollars to help with the new store on the north end of town. So without these districts, it's very hard to bring builders in to help us create what we need when we need it.
I would also like to comment on the fact that Wayne and Pam were here 20 years ago when we started TID number 2, and there was a lot of pressure to do an industrial site, and we had experienced the previous 10 years that just having green grass available was not going to do it. We had to put out the public infrastructure to make people interested in those types of projects. And so the balance there was is that, okay, we got green fields, but nobody's developing it. Well, 27 years later, we've got $33 million worth of increment the school district's going to benefit from, whereas 27 years is green fields provided them no benefit. So it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. And as you balance it towards the workforce, go out there and ask those businesses, do you have enough people to work out there? And the answer has historically been no.
The way we structured those is as a pay goal, was no need for borrowing. I think it was astute on our part.
Yeah, back in those days, we fully funded all of it. So we put all the money up front and then tried to regain our money on the back, which we did do. Nowadays, we don't do that. Now we do pay-go. In fact, we do an even more innovative pay-go in that they fund it all, and we only give them the increment as it comes in. We don't even have to have, we never borrow any money. So it's a much better design to TID, and I think it's becoming the standard across the board.
I also agree that the industrial park is where we shine most. When Crepaco left, we really lost that tax gain, and then all that infrastructure, the streets, the underground utilities were all provided there to have that whole area grow, and they'd be built out, which is really fortunate for the city. And look at that tax gain, net gain. So.
We could talk about dollars and cents on these projects too, but certainly we're not going to overlook the aesthetics and how it fits in our character of our community. Sure, we have zoning codes and building codes, and public input will be very important at this point. At that point, when we get some real plans from a developer.
The building architecture will be paramount in the heart of downtown, and we have codes to ensure that we get the contextual turn-of-the-century architecture that we need. It will be heavily scrutinized by the Plan Commission and the council, as well as the staff, and of course the public. A better-looking building costs more. More costly building is more value. It helps the TID.
Yeah, and that has to go through a public hearing also when that comes into Plan Commission. So that's another input place for you guys to come in and put your input into it.
Yes, I would recommend, like Patty and everybody that's there, to pay attention to what's going on to the city, and when these things start coming up, to come on in and let us know. Like I mentioned before, everybody in the district got noticed. They'll probably get noticed again on any zoning changes or any other types of developments that are going on, because that's required by our code. And then come on in.
I have a question on developers that come in. Does the city entertain any and all developers, and then that gets passed on to the Plan Commission, or is there a stepwise process where we prioritize this developer has a better opportunity for us, and that just stays within the city before it goes to the Plan Commission?
Everything has to go to the Plan Commission and the City Council. What staff does is they review it and try and get the people to fit within a certain set of standards, so that when they do go to the Plan Commission or the City Council, that they have a plan for how they're going to accomplish their goals. So you know, if they need a zoning change or a CSM, or, you know, they need density changes, how are they going to use a planned design district, or are they going to shift to a R312, or, you know, that all comes to us, and we work with them on those concepts, and then they submit their application. We take that application, use it to do the advertisement. They pay a fee that's used to pay the advertisement. They also pay an escrow that's used to review the site plans, and then it goes to the plan commission and the city council. So it really becomes we're not gatekeepers. We don't keep them from getting to the plan commission and the city council. We're kind of the ones that try and help them fit within the scope of what's available. Now, a lot of times we say, this is what the zoning is, this is what's allowed, and they say, well, I don't want that. And then we say, well, you can file for a zoning amendment to an R312, or you can do a PDD, or you can do both. And then they put those packages together, submit, and we send it on to the city council, or the plan commission and the city council.
Great, thank you.
That was Josh Schumacher of the Plan Commission who had the question.
So one more thing to think about. All we would give here today is a recommendation that we would say yes or no, we would like to see this district created. Then it has to go to the city council. City council still is the last. City council only recommends to the joint review board that we would like to see this happen. And then the joint review board has to approve it. So that's where your technical college, your county, your local schools, and the city all get together, and they decide whether or not this is a good plan and that they're willing to let that increment go for those number of years.
We're not letting anything go, because nothing will be built. Nothing's built, there's nothing to let go.
You're exactly right. Right now, especially with Century, the person that owns it isn't going to build anything. So they're going to have to go through the process, if they want to, of selling it, and then on and on. So who knows when something will be built there.
I just got something in closing. I'd like to personally thank everybody that attended the audience this evening. We spent over 5 years creating the Title 10 zoning code, and do you suppose we could sometimes even attract one resident in the audience? So public input is very important. So as these things proceed, please come and express your opinions, because it's a very important part of our city development. Once again, thank you.
Right. That's a very important point that I remember many times Mr. Holman would ask, isn't there anyone who wants to come and comment on what we're doing? So we ended up polling people here during the time of the rewrite of the code to deliberately come and comment on what we were doing in different sections of the code. So yes, participation is very important. Plan commissioners, staff, is there anything further that you want to discuss concerning tax increment financing district number 8 proposed?
Maybe
Just if people have questions, make sure they ask. Don't assume what they're reading or seeing is what they're truly understanding. Make sure you ask us what's going on so you get the true answer before misinformation might get out there. We have the answers for the most part. If we don't, we'll find the answers for you. But don't take everything for gospel that you read or see out there. Until the council has approved it and they start digging, nothing is approved.
Can I ask, could Dustin speak to the time lag between the start of new development and the actual collecting of any increment?
Certainly. So, assuming something is built in a fiscal year, it doesn't go on the tax levy until the next year. So something that's constructed in 2021 doesn't get taxes paid until 2022. It's usually about 15 to 20 months before you actually start generating tax revenue on new construction of anything. So there is a considerable lag um, associated with anything. So it is a challenge. It's what makes redevelopment projects especially difficult.
Planning Commissioners, we have in front of us Plan Commission Resolution 20-2, approving boundary and project plan for tax increment district number 8, City of Lake Mills, Wisconsin. Resolution 20-2 sets forth that the city has decided to use tax increment financing to promote development and redevelopment, that the city proposes tax increment number 8 as a redevelopment district. The Plan Commission's tax increment number 8 plan includes A, a statement of the proposed public works and improvements, B, economic feasibility study, C, estimated project costs, D, methods of financing and timeframe, E, map of existing uses and conditions in the district, F, map of proposed improvements and uses, G, proposed zoning, plan, map, and code changes, H, estimated non-project costs, I, statement on any relocation if any persons are displaced. J, statement of how the district promotes orderly development. K, statement that proposed project costs include cash payments to owners, lessees, or developers. L, statement regarding the ability to do projects within 1/2 mile of the district. M, the city attorney opinion that the plan is complete and complies with section 66.11054F of Wisconsin state statutes. This resolution 20-2 states that the Plan Commission resolves the following. 1. Tax increment district number 8 boundaries as illustrated in map 1. 2. Not less than 50% of the real property in the district meets the statutory definition of blighted area under section 66.1105 2 AE 1 Wisconsin state statutes. 3. The district is declared to be a blighted area district. 4. The equalized value of the taxable property of the district plus the value increment of all existing districts does not exceed 12% of the total equalized value of taxable property within the city. 5. The boundaries of tax increment district number 8 will not include territory that was not within the boundary of the city of Lake Mills on January 1, 2004, and where less than 3 years have elapsed since the territory was annexed. 6. For the percentage of territory within the district devoted to having retail businesses at the end of the expenditure period will be approximately 35%. 7. Property then vacant would not be more than 25% of the area. 8. Improvement of the area is likely to enhance significantly the real value of other properties in the area, and that development would not occur without the tax increment financing district creation. 9. 9. Project costs relate directly to blight elimination and redevelopment, and the economic benefits are sufficient to compensate for the cost. 10. In the opinion of the city, the benefits outweigh the anticipated tax increments to be paid by the district's property owners. 11. The effective date of tax increment financing district number 8 is January 1, 2021. 12. The project plan is feasible and promotes orderly development in conformity with the comprehensive plan. 13. The project plan and boundary for the district is approved. Further, the Plan Commission recommends that the City Council approve the boundary and project plan for Tax Increment District Number 8. Plan Commissioners, this is the prepared Resolution 20-2 for you to consider this evening. Are there any comments or questions concerning proposed resolution? Would any plan commissioner like to make a motion concerning resolution 20-2?
We move for approval of Plan Commission Resolution 20-2.
Mr. Megginson has moved approval of resolution 20-2. Is there a second?
Second.
This is,
All right, it's been seconded by Mr. Holman. Is there any further discussion? All right, in that case, I'll proceed with a roll call vote.
Mr. Schumacher?
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Did you ask for me?
Mr. Coots?
oh,
Mr. Coots?
Ms. Lazaris?
Aye.
Mr. Magnuson?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
All right. The next item is item number 7, recommendation for future agendas. Is there anything we should discuss this evening concerning future agendas?
As was previously mentioned, we're going to be having a rezoning request for 1204 South Main Street in the future, and we are looking at some minor code amendments as well.
All right. All right, thank you. Is there anything further under future agendas? All right. In that case, we come to item number 8, adjournment.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is it seconded?
second by Mr. Coots.
Thank you. Moved by Mr. Holman, second by Mr. Coots. Any discussion on this matter? In that case, all those in favor signify by aye.
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 Anyone who objects? We stand adjourned.